What's going on, everybody? And welcome back to the Spring Deep Dive series, where I take a holistic look at all 138 FBS programs. And in doing so, I give you where I rank each individual team going into the 2026 season from a spring perspective, as well as what my record prediction would be as of things unfolding here in the spring as well. So I'm doing that for all 138 programs. And today, we jump into our 121st ranked team in college football, as team 122 is going to be a Conference USA team. So that will be revealed at a later time when the revised Conference USA schedule does end up coming out. I am running under the assumption that Louisiana Tech will be a part of the Sun Belt leading into the 2026 season. So that's why the CUSA teams are, those reveals are going to be delayed for the time being. But for now, very excited about talking about Team 121, as well as what to expect from them this upcoming season. So hopefully you guys are excited for today's deep dive. And if you are, make sure you go ahead, hit that like button, and hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel, because there is a lot of work that goes into the background in terms of trying to provide you that 50,000 feet perspective of all 138 teams. So if you want to hit those two, do those two things for me real fast, we would appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. So let's leave a comment in terms of general feedback, in terms of what do you think about this 121 team that I have on my list. But for now, let's go ahead and get into who is team number 121 here in the spring of 2026. And for me, that's going to be the Rice Owls. And that's a team that will be led by Scott Abel entering year number two. And it was a surprise, a little bit of a surprise of a year, where you saw this Rice football team be competitive in what was the most treacherous conference in the G6 last year, able to go 5-8, and was fortunate enough because Rice has one of the better academics in college football. Rice being able to get that nod for a bowl invitation at 5-7. So getting to a bowl game in year number one, that was a successful year for Rice football, especially with where this team was at prior to Scott Abel taking over. And the goal will be just to try to build off of that. And the good news is that they don't lose a ton of players. They only lost a few key players from the transfer portal going to power conference programs. Now, they do have to lose out on Chase Jenkins. So losing your starting quarterback is difficult. He transfers to Kansas, and he had over 1,500 total yards and 14 touchdowns. He had a solid year for the Rice Owls as the primary starter. So losing him is difficult. And then they do also lose a couple of key defensive pieces as well in Ty Morris, the linebacker who transfers to Rutgers, and he had almost 90 combined tackles last year. So that's a lot of production that you're going to miss in that linebacking room, as well as that star safety, Marcus Williams, who maybe a little bit more of a box safety, coming in with 6, 7 tackles and 5 pass breakups as well. But someone that has a lot of starting experience as well that you're gonna have to replace. But again, it's not a team that was by any means gutted in the transfer portal. It's You're still gonna ask for guys internally to develop, which is always a challenge in today's day and age, where players just tend not to be as patient as what they once were, maybe even 10, 15 years ago, or even 5 years ago, prior to really the full implementation of the NIL and transfer portal era. Now, they did add a couple of pieces in the transfer portal that certainly intrigued me. One of those players that we talked about literally the previous episode in this series, and that is Koa Okai, where if you want me to give my specific thoughts on him, you'll have to definitely check out the Sacramento State video that will be included in this playlist. So if you want to hear some more, I guess, concrete thoughts on Koa Okai, the Sacramento State transfer, you'll have to check him out over there. But to try and not repeat myself over there, this was a productive ball player, and he was a nice ball hawk for the Hornets last year, and Rice is very happy to have him. And another piece that they add in the transfer portal that really does intrigue me is Jakari Brown. He is a quarterback from UCF that is now part of this Owls football program. And the thing about Jakari Brown is that he hasn't played a ton of football, but he is a high was highly touted in the high school recruiting ranks when he was coming out. He is a former four-star recruit. So Jakari Brown does have talent. But does he get the opportunity now that Chase Jenkins is no longer here as well? The starting quarterback battle is open. So there is a space for Ja'Cory Brown to come in and win this starting job out of spring and summer camp. It's just going to be a wait and see with him. Now, if you don't get much out of him, you weren't expecting a ton because, again, he hasn't played a ton. But if you're able at the same time, he becomes your starter, that's a bonus. And that's going to lift not only the floor, but the ceiling and baseline of this Rice football team moving forward if you're able to do that. So oh, and by the way, I haven't got to him yet. Very excited about the return of Quentin Jackson as well. He's a tailback on this team to keep an eye on. He was a third team All American Conference running back. Not an All American, but an American Conference running back. So Quentin Jackson, very excited to be back in Scott Abel's system in this second year. So that's the good news in all of this. Now, for them to actually go forward and hit that 6-win benchmark where they can get invited to a bowl game without having to worry about if teams are going to opt out and create space. And, that's how Rice was able to backdoor their way in last year was enough teams did opt out of their bowl game. So it created some room for Rice to accept the bowl invitation and play in a game for bowl season. Well, it's going to be difficult to get back to that spot. Not because I think this team is worse off. I actually think this team is slightly better than what they were at the end of last year. That's the good news. The bad news is that this schedule that Rice is going to have to navigate, in my opinion, this is going to be the toughest schedule in the American Conference this year. Um, and I really like to say that it's not even close, but to be honest with you, it really isn't even close. So let me go ahead and pull up this conference schedule so that you guys can go ahead and see what I'm talking about, right? So this is what Rice schedule is going to be during the 2026 fall campaign, right? So they open things up nice and easy. Houston Christian FCS program. I think Rice is in the spot where you look at the FCS game, and that's a safe win, and I don't say that about every single team in the major college division. So that's a safe win for Rice. And then after that, it gets infinitely tougher. Notre Dame on the road. Notre Dame is a team that I'm eyeing as a potential national champion, and so to play them on the road is difficult. Western Michigan at home. You're talking about a Western Michigan team that is looking to defend its MAC title. So Western Michigan is going to be a tough game to play, even if that is ultimately going to happen in your home building as well. And then on the road against Fresno State, I talked about this last episode, ironically, too. But Fresno State, a good Pac 12 program. Plus, on top of that, Fresno State has one of the tougher environments in the G6. So that's going to be a challenging road environment for Rice to deal with potentially an inexperienced quarterback as well. So that gives me some pause in terms of if they're going to be able to build momentum during non-conference play because it's going to be an uphill climb. And then when you're talking about how things could shape out in the actual conference slate, well, I've already talked about this. This was arguably one of the toughest conferences in the G6 last year, and I think that will continue even if there may not be that premium contender that allowed Tulane to put themselves forward as the primary G5 representative for the college football playoff. It starts with UTSA at home, and I am incredibly high on UTSA with Jeff Traylor back as well as Owen McCown back. I think UTSA has too much firepower for Rice to be able to keep up with its triple option style of play. And that's the thing about these triple options teams. They lend themselves to be more script dependent. if they're able to get off to a faster start and they're able to get stops early, it lends themselves to be able to really control the tempo of the game. Whereas if it's flipped and where you look up on the scoreboard, they're down 10 to nothing late in the first quarter, that it's a harder hole to climb out of. So I think UTSA has too much firepower. And then East Carolina on the road as well. East Carolina is going to be a tough game as well. East Carolina could be a potential American Conference contender as well with what they are bringing back too. But that's not the only game that they have to worry about. Tulsa, for example, which is one of the more winnable games I think is on Rice's schedule for American Conference play. Even Tulsa is improved in the way that Trey Lamb finished, and his team finished last year. That might lend to themselves to making more progress in year two under him. FAU on the road. Kind of the same thing that we're talking about with UTSA, except their defense is a little bit more volatile. But again, you have to go on the road to play those guys. North Texas under Neil Brown. I don't know what North Texas is going to look like under Neil Brown. Completely different team from last year. But even though I think there's going to be a drop off for the Mean Green, I still think that North Texas has enough in place to where they could also give Rice a tough time. Tulane has typically been one of the best programs in the American, so even at home, that's a tough sell. Temple, what's Temple look like under year two under Casey Keeler, right? Temple could be another team that could make another step forward and, possibly have something to say in the month of November when that American title race really does heat up. And then Army. Army has some continuity coming back. I like what they Army has, and Army could be a sneaky pick to play for the conference title game at the end of the year. So, really intrigued by this Army Black Knights football program. So, even at home, I think Army does a better job with running its stuff than what Rice is still right now. Not that I have anything bad to say about Scott Abel. I think he's a good coach, and it showed in his first year. But I think that Army has a little bit more continuity on its coaching staff and experience, and that would ultimately be the difference as well. So that's why, even though I do think that this team is a better football team than this time last spring, there is progress being made. It just might not show in terms of the record prediction, which is why I do only have a 3-9 ceiling on this Rice team right now. I just think there's a lot of games on this list where I think the rest of the conference is too tough to expect um, any significant upsets from this Rice team. But again, I do want to alliterate that even though they might take a step back from a record standpoint, I think the talent on this roster has leveled up in comparison to last year, even with the few guys that they did lose in the transfer portal to power conference programs. So 1-11 ultimately, but I think that Rice is going to be one of the best 1-11 teams that we've seen in quite some time. So that's what I'm looking at for Rice football in the fall. Food might take a step back, but they're still going to be a fun team to watch in their own right. But I am curious, so let me know what you guys think. Am I a little too harsh on Rice, or am I kind of in the right spot for them? Let me know down in the comments section below. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this 50,000 feet perspective of Rice football going into the fall. And if you do, make sure you go ahead, hit that like button, as well as hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel. This is Jake from College Football Red Zone signing off, but hope you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.